Hey friends, and welcome to the SoulFire sessions at the intersection of passion and purpose, where you align with what sets your soul on fire. We're your hosts, Alex and Mariah, and we're so thankful that you've joined us today. We are all about reclaiming clarity, rebuilding confidence, and designing a future that actually fits you. So take a breath, feel the spark, and let's step into the fire. Hey, Mariah.
Hey, Sunshine. How's it going?
It's good. We actually have sunshine today for the first time in like a week.
I know. I love it. It makes me feel better.
Yes. Well, I am so excited to introduce our guest today, Jordan. He and I have been peers and friends and sort of became siblings in a sense for quite a while. We did our last degree together. And so I think 2019 maybe, Jordan? I don't even know. 6 years probably. We were in it together and we are still in it together. And so I'm so grateful that you are joining us today. How are you, Jordan?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it makes so much sense that now you're at SoulFire Collective. I mean, it goes right in hand with, where you were those years ago and what really lit our fires even back then. And now it's become the SoulFire to help other people. I mean, it's the perfect next step. And I'm happy to help in any way I can with this project.
Love that. Thank you. I just want to dive in. Okay, we're going to get real deep real fast.
Good. Let's do
Jordan,
it.
I know a couple years ago you went through a really hard layoff. And so a lot of our listeners, have similar experiences. A lot of people in the world right now are experiencing layoffs and having to make career pivots and changes. And I think it's really relevant to what's going on in the world right now. And so I really just want to start there. What did your life look like before the layoff? You were in K through 12 and you transitioned into corporate. And what happened when the layoff happened? How did you feel? And what kind of things were you experiencing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's see, before the layoff, which was, it's around a year and a half, getting close to 2 years maybe now. Life was good, man. I've got 4 kids and a wife of 12 years. It was a remote job, and that was cool. You can do a lot with that. We were homeschooling our youngest daughter, and because we got to be at home, we were raising a new puppy at the same time. That's a lot of work. Potty training. I was in and out of the backyard all day long. But yeah, things were pretty good. Going to church. I think one message that I kind of, as I'm thinking about this, and after the layoff happened, that message I got that was really clear to me was that even though it seemed like things were pretty cool, I was wanting more, and I was wanting something different with a career. I had been in education, and then I did change and started working in the software business. And that company that I was working for was acquired by another company. And then I lasted, a few months after that, and that's when the layoff happened. But I think I wanted it to happen. And I'm in a much better place now. I'm doing something that I really love. So just to jump to the, spoil the end of the story here is it got better, and then it got even better, and then it got awesome. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm very grateful for that layoff and everything else in between.
Was it, when it happened, Jordan, did you feel that way? Like, could you see the silver lining in the moment? Or, did the goodness come later? Were you scared? Were you apprehensive?
I had never been fired before. So it was an interesting, I didn't work a lot of places, throughout my whole life. I usually stayed at a place for a while until it was some kind of a career jump, maybe, graduate with a degree, become a teacher, so I shifted from working hotel maintenance to being a teacher, shifts like that, but I had never been fired before. So no, it sucked at first because the biggest thing was, well, it was a little bit of a surprise. And it was good that I got to evaluate, what did I do wrong? But that is the first question, I asked myself was like, what happened? What did I do wrong? And when I'm thinking about doing this podcast and that I had the chance to tell somebody on this podcast that, hey, you didn't do anything wrong. That's what I want you to know. There's truth to that, but also it's probably good that I did consider what did I do wrong, because I found some things. Maybe you have to face yourself. You're not perfect, and where can you improve? And I learned a lot about myself. Whether I wasn't really told any of these things by the company, like, hey, this is where you've fallen short and everything like that. They simply said, we're restructuring. It's been great. Here's a beautiful severance package to get you by for a while. I appreciate everything that you've done and wish you the best. And if something comes up, you're definitely rehireable here. You're welcome here. And maybe that happens in the future, maybe not. So it was a very nice layoff in my case. And, I wasn't in trouble, but I did get a chance through that to turn the what did I do wrong feeling like, insecure and bad about myself, but turning that actually into a good opportunity to realize, first of all, as I said, a minute ago, I wasn't super thrilled. Something was missing in my life. And in that specific job role that I had, I really enjoyed a lot of parts of it, but I felt like there were parts of it, parts of my kind of passions, my things that light my soul on fire, you ladies might say, that weren't getting a chance to express themselves, or as often as I wanted. It was good for me to realize, probably that fact that I wasn't thrilled to log in every day might have been a factor. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was, maybe people didn't know, maybe they did. But I had to realize that, well, you didn't really love what was happening on a day-to-day basis. You were kind of looking for something else out of the corner of your eye. But sometimes we have to get fired to be able to go for it. And I think I probably would have just hung out in that company for a lot longer than I did had they not fired me. And I would have done good. I would have, worked hard for the company and done good things, but I wouldn't have what I have now. So nothing was going to really force my hand. And getting fired forced my hand to go figure out what I want to do. And this is my opportunity to really try to figure out what I want to do. And it's scary, but man, there's a sense of relief. It's almost like, like a criminal finally getting arrested and he sleeps in the jail that night because, he knows he's caught and the jig's up, and it's kind of almost a sense of relief or something. So there was a piece of that too. The emotions are up and down, and I would go back and forth for months after being laid off thinking, well, what did I do? What was wrong with me? Why didn't anybody else getting fired at that time? And I would start looking back at this like confirmation bias type of deal, where I would look back at other situations in my previous years in all kinds of situations, not just work, but in relationships and friendships and things, and I would start finding things that didn't go right, or feelings of rejection that I may have been in the middle of other times, and it would start to pile in my mind going, yeah, maybe there's something wrong with me, and maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was, or, so there was all that head talk. It wasn't a smooth, like, all right, I'm free, and now I can do what I want to do. Yeah. But I would have glimpses of that, and then I would kind of like go backwards sometimes. I'd have like those weaker moments where I'd start to question it again. And when that happened, I would talk about it. I'd call my dad, I'd call my brother, I'd call my sister, I'd talk to my wife. I have a spiritual advisor, I'd talk to him, and I had all these people around me that would have to re-explain it again. You can do these other things, you probably want to do these other things anyway. No, it wasn't you, this is how corporate works. You're reading too much into it, Jordan. You analyzed it way too much. I think when I do that with everything, and you fire somebody like me, and I'm going to analyze, it to death. Like, well, maybe it was this, and but my family would just be like, it's not that complicated, Jordan. It's like they didn't put that much thought into it. Like, they were looking at numbers, and that was pretty much it. So
yeah, I remember, Jordan, I remember when you texted me that you had lost your job. And I think it literally said, I just lost my job, dude. I was like, I don't even know how to respond to this right now. But then there would be instances where you would say things like, this is probably really good for me because now I can figure out something that I want to do, and what I have the doctorate now, and I can figure out something that, you didn't say set your soul on fire, but essentially set your soul on fire. What is your purpose, and what is something you're going to love and enjoy doing? And I do remember you going back and forth for a long time. So talk to us about, how long were you without a job? And what was, happening during that time?
I didn't have a job for pretty much a year. Yeah, it was like a year with no job. And so what was going on during that time was, I did the severance, and then I ended up getting on unemployment because I still didn't have a job after that. So financially, I was kind of being sustained for a lot of those months just through that, the company was good to me when we parted ways, and then I was able to draw unemployment and things like that, which was a weird experience, a weird feeling to be applying for that. That'll help with, your problem of pride if you've got one, because, you get to, it's just a weird feeling, getting that check from the government. And but you got to accept it, and you have to do that, and it's there for a reason, and so you've got to take that. But it made me feel guilty that I didn't have a job yet. I'm like, yeah, I really got to work harder. So I would try, I put a resume together, and I started applying. I tried applying on LinkedIn job postings, and I think that maybe it works for some people, but for me, that was a dead end, and I just wouldn't leave it alone. It took me a while to realize that I was not getting any interviews from these hundreds, and I mean hundreds of jobs I was applying for on LinkedIn. So I maybe I didn't even want a job. Maybe, I don't know, And that's what I'm asking myself too. Maybe you just don't want a job, you're not really trying that hard. And I did start to get better luck with Indeed. For what it's worth for the listeners, just one person's experience. I had more bites on Indeed when I would apply places than I did on LinkedIn. I don't know why. I'm sure there are a lot of factors that had to do with me, but that's just my story.
One of the things that I heard you say, Jordan, is all the feelings that you were feeling throughout the time of the layoff and the time afterwards. And I kept thinking about how those feelings you were describing, the questioning and the grief that you were experiencing, and a little bit of the shame, and those being some that you mentioned, and how those mirror loss, right? When we're grieving or going through a significant loss. And something we've talked about on the podcast before is how oftentimes we put so much of our identity into our workplace. And when that disappears, we lose a significant part of ourselves. Do you think that was the case in your situation? and that some of those feelings you were experiencing were due to an identity shift?
There was a lot of confusion, I will say, just about where to go next. So there was some identity thing there that happened, but when you were asking me that, where my mind went was just looking forward. Where should I try to go? Like, what kind of jobs do I want? Now that everything's on the table again, what's it going to be? And it was weird. My resume, like probably a lot of people, was like a mixed bag. Like I wasn't just at a company and in a specific profession for a certain amount of years, and then that's it. So it wasn't so cut and dry as to what other types of jobs I would apply for. So I'd be trying all these different things, and every time I would try, like everything, sales, customer service, education, every time I would apply for these different things and try to imagine, okay, maybe this is it. It was confusing. Like I was trying to figure out, well, I have a few years of experience in this, so should I be applying for this type of role then? That makes sense about like most likely to get hired based on that experience and stuff. But I don't really want to do that, I don't think. I'd like to do something else, but how do you get into something else? It's not on the resume, or there's not enough of it on the resume. If I wanted to try something new, do I want to go back to teaching? And then the fact that it was a remote job, so do I want to stick remote? If I don't, it's going to complicate everything, our life that was at that point built around a remote job. Daughter being homeschooled, puppy needing to go potty. I mentioned those two earlier, but driving, all that stuff. So that was going to be a big shift. As time went on, I got willing to explore more and more different types of jobs and trying different things. I'm a religious person. I was trying to figure out what God wanted for me next. And I wanted to do something important. I wanted to do something that had a lot of impact. And I wanted to be somewhere doing something that I could feel like I was me. I wanted to be me, fully expressing, the different things I like to do and how I want to help people the way I want to help people. I want to be able to have, stuff I like is like having one-on-one conversations and trying to help people. I either like to stir emotion or like still emotion, right? Like if someone's really stressed or upset, I want to help still that emotion. If somebody's needing, encouragement, that's something that I'm good at. I was just trying to figure out where and what does it look like to be me. So I think that hits on the identity thing, Mariah, that you're talking about there, because I want to do something where I can be me like never before.
During that year, we would touch base and you would say, I'm mentoring this person, I'm coaching this person, I'm doing this. Fun fact about Jordan, he loves to write poetry, which is phenomenal. And so like you were doing things to sort of fulfill that or scratch that itch, I guess, of wanting to help others. You just weren't making money at it, right? Mm-hmm. So when did you get to a point where you realized like, this is what I want to do and this is my purpose? And what happened then?
One of the first things I did when I got fired was go on a vacation. That was recommended to me by my sister, who was also going on a vacation. And I went on vacation with my sister to California, her family and my family. We were sitting at a nephew's birthday party, and, I had just gotten let go. And my sister was like, well, we're leaving for California next week. Why don't you just come with us? Take this opportunity to relax, refresh, get a reset. It's not going to work if you just jump into a frenzy and try to just get in somewhere else and, all that. So I took the recommendation, and it was awesome. And, I did actually a lot of that over the next year. A lot of days I woke up and was just available. I was just around, and I got to just kind of soak in, do the things that I haven't been getting to do for a while, and put some hours in looking for jobs and stuff like that. But then have some fun. Whether that was good or bad, that's what I did, and I don't regret it. I think that was awesome. But getting out of it, something actually really crazy in my life happened. Okay, we were going visiting my wife's family in Ohio. We were living in Texas, lived there my whole life, and we were looking at houses. And my wife's a real estate agent, and so we were going around looking at houses and things. And we walked into this house because we thought it was really, really cool. We saw it on Zillow, and we just had to see it. It was like 100-year-old house, and it was for sale. So we went and saw this house. And here I am, right? Like, I haven't worked in a long time. I'm just floating around. Now I'm on another trip to Ohio with the family, seeing family, and I'm the guy with no job. And I'm always updating people, with there's no update. I still don't have a job. But, people are always asking, anything yet? Any interviews yet? What's going on? And I'm the guy that's always like, no, nothing yet. So we go into this house, and this is, spoilers, the house I'm in right now. We walk into this house. I walk to the back windows, and I look out into the backyard, and something just came over me. And I started crying, and I didn't even know why, and I just felt something pulling me here. I looked at my wife, and Bethany, and she was like, Jordan's crying. It's like, I guess we have to get this house now. Almost as a joke, maybe, I'm not sure, but I did. I saw, I didn't see specifics of what the life was, of what the big change was that was pulling me, but I saw enough of it. And we decided to sell our home in Texas and get this house. I said that night, get this house for me, honey, get it, whatever it takes, and what it was going to take us to sell our house in Texas and leave my whole family and do this. Why? I don't know. I believe God was telling me to do this, but he didn't lay out, hey, do this and I have a job for you here. The details weren't filled in yet. And so that's the crazy thing that happened in my life. But I had never done something that big of a step out into faith. And a step like that, even that can be questioned on, well, is this, what I'm supposed to do? Or is this me being weird? Is this because I lost my job and I'm just in this freak out state now, and now I'm about to make a crazy decision? And it's hard to tell, but, again, I would talk with the people around me and my spiritual advisor, my wife. My wife never thought she'd move back to Ohio, but for some reason she was oddly okay with this and interested in doing this too. So that was kind of like, okay, there's some more evidence that, maybe this is what we should do. So we did. I moved up here, and I still didn't have a job. And what I did with that time was I started meeting people around this town. It's like a smaller town, and I would spend days, applying for jobs or studying or trying to write another book in coffee shops and things like that. And I started making a lot of friends around here and exploring. I was applying for all kinds of jobs, because at this point I was just like, God, I know there's something big is here. Just tell me, show me, make it happen. I just want you to know that I'm open and willing to do that. And this is what Bethany and I would pray. We're like, God, show us. We believe we're here for something big, and we want you to know that we fully accept it and we're ready for it, which we were, because there was no going back. So I started applying for jobs like everything, teaching, preaching. I'd never been a preacher before, but I thought I need to make sure that God and I have an understanding that I am going to do whatever, and if this job happens, it happens. So yeah, didn't get a job preaching, but I also started life coaching and tutoring. I put myself out there in those ways, and I found people to help. So that was sustaining. That was bringing in a little income, and it was giving me more of that. Well, I guess we're talking about SoulFire here. It was keeping that part lit, and it was a lot of fun. But I still was looking for like a full time thing. And then we're trying to find a school for my daughter because we couldn't homeschool her moving up here because she needed friends, and it was just going to be too isolating for her. So we're touring these schools, and we go into a private Christian school. It's about 8 minutes down the street from us. And they're showing us everything, and I walked in there and I started to feel that feeling again. And that's my dog making snorts, if you can hear that. He wants in my lap. I started to feel this feeling in this school. Now my daughter at the time didn't like it. She wasn't interested in going to that school, but I was. I couldn't get this school out of my mind. And so I applied for an English teaching position that they had open. And I ended up getting the interview. During the interview, I walked in there and I basically said I didn't want that job. That was a real twist for the head of school, And I said, I don't want that job, but I feel something here and I want to help and I want to know what you guys are trying to do. I just want to be here. I don't know what it is, but I believe in the mission of this school. They're extremely diverse. They're a missional-based Christian school, which is different than a covenantal. So they take everybody. They want everybody. All walks of life, all religions. This school is full of immigrants and refugees and just some of the greatest, most beautiful kids you could imagine. There's flags of like 30 different countries in the hallways representing where everybody is from. And there was just a good feeling in there. And I said, I don't have a job and I want to be here. And she said, well, I kind of feel that too. I'm going to pray about that. That's the kind of thing where I was feeling like I was being myself and I was going after what I wanted and just being honest about what I didn't want. I remember before the interview, I was getting dressed for it, and I had a short sleeve shirt on, and I, as I often do, go to my wife, and it's like, okay, how do I look? I'm about to go into this interview. And she was like, well, I mean, maybe you want to wear a long sleeve shirt to cover your tattoos just for this first interview. And I was like, and keep in mind, this is a woman whose husband hasn't had a job in a year. And she wants me to get a job. But I said, I'm not going to. I'm not changing shirts to cover tattoos. I don't care. If they got a problem with that, I don't want to be there anyway. So I show up in this interview, and the head of the school, she's more tatted up than I am. And it was just like another beautiful little message. I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I told her the story. I was like, I almost wore long sleeves today. They had some strategic initiatives that they're trying to accomplish, and one of which was they're a K through 8 school, and they were trying to expand into having a high school. And that's where my experience was in high school as a teacher and then an English instructional coach for a while. And I basically just started getting on that project. And I would report back to them, here's what I found, here's what I've built, for this school. And it was kind of like, so she took this work that I had done, showed it to the board, they decided to hire me, and now that's where I am. Now that's what I'm doing, and this is where I'm happy, and I believe something big is coming where I'm a director of the high school expansion for Summit Christian School in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and we're starting a high school next year that's awesome. That's going to be special, and there's not going to be anything like that around, where we're going to be a career focused instead of a college prep focused. We're going to be life skills focused, where we're going to be 4-day weeks where providing all kinds of opportunities through our partnerships and things like that for our students on that 5th day, although they can still come in on the 5th day. All these things I had a lot of fun designing and brainstorming and collaborating on, and we're just really excited about it. So that's where I'm at now.
That's incredible. Stories like that give me goosebumps. And so I just appreciate you sharing. We talk about often on our show how when you pay attention to your body and you pay attention to your surroundings, oftentimes you get clues on what resonates, what doesn't resonate, what aligns with your purpose and what aligns with what's right for you. And it doesn't look like necessarily what might be in a textbook or what might be drawn out for you. But if you pay attention, your body gives you signs, the universe gives you signs, God gives you signs on where you're supposed to be. And it's really cool when you turn off the noise around you. Sometimes that's what it takes, right? So that you can hear the things and feel the things. And so that's what I was getting from your story. And it was giving me goosebumps just to hear that, because so many of our listeners are lost and distracted and just surrounded by so much noise that they don't know how to listen or to align, and it's scary. We're so distracted these days with being busy and being hurried and competing demands that when everything is quiet, those moments like when you walked into that home and just started crying, or walked into the school, you wouldn't have had that if you had a million competing demands. If your phone was ringing because you were on call for work or taking your kid to the school and things like that, you probably wouldn't be where you are.
Yeah.
So I was just having a moment. Yeah.
I was going to say, I just could tell, Jordan, that your tone became more excited and more happy when you started talking about this new role. I could hear it in your voice, which is amazing.
The passion, it just comes through.
Yeah.
It's cool when your passion and purpose collide. That's where Alex and I talk about, that intersection is what we want everyone to find.
It's alignment.
Yes. And it's beautiful to hear.
And Jordan, you talked a lot about authenticity, which is one of our values, and we talk about that a lot. And I think that often people, when they are their authentic self, when they're honest about that and who they are and show that to other people, oftentimes things do happen. Things change, right? Like when it comes down to it, I think my opinion is I want to know who you are authentically. I want to really know who you are and build that relationship that way. And so I love that you said, I love you, Bethany, but I'm going to wear the short sleeves. And you walked into the interview and said, I don't really want to teach English here, but I want to work here. I think that's amazing. A lot of people would not do that.
Yeah, the hair was another thing too. People kept telling me, you need to cut your hair. You're trying to find a job. And I'm kind of like, no, man, I'm done. I'm just going to be me. That's it.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's been something that's been on my heart lately, is to ask why, right? And like, who says? And people say you need to have short hair, or you can't have long hair, you can't have tattoos, and it's like, who says, right? And who is they, and why did they say that? And just getting to the root of that we have in our brains, because I think oftentimes it's not real. And it was at one point, maybe 50 years ago, a belief or a bias or something that was written in books on how you get a job, but all of that has completely morphed and evolved over time. And I think sometimes our brains get stuck in the old ways of how things used to be and forget that those guardrails or those black and white lines are different now. And the places that they're not, people like us, Jordan, I'm with you with the tattoos, and I don't color in the lines, and I certainly don't fit in a box. I don't belong in those spaces anyway, so I would hope that they would reveal themselves on the front end before I land myself in a seat of employment at a place where I'd have to pretend to be something I'm not, because that would be exhausting.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things like that too. So like just, hair and tattoos and all that kind of classic stuff. But it's also, like behavior things like
Yep.
not talking about your feelings or, how your day is or not admitting that you don't know something or, you don't know how to do this, especially at work, why not?
Yep.
It's actually better to just come out and say you don't know how to do this or you do not
Agreed.
feel equipped to do this.
Well, I want to ask you a question. I have 2 questions I ask every guest, but before we get to those 2 questions, I just want to kind of wrap it up into some actionable steps for the listener. If they just got laid off or they're making a big transition, what would you want them to hear?
Don't see it as a rejection. You can ask yourself, what did I do wrong? As long as the reason you're asking yourself that is to find ways that you can grow. Don't try to gloss over it or listen to the friends who just want to lift you up when they say, oh man, that wasn't your fault. It wasn't you. And that may be the case, but it's always more often a mixed bag. Yeah, I can ask myself, what did I do wrong? As long as I'm willing to use that as a motivator to do something different,
I would add, again, being true to who you are, figuring out what your purpose is and your passions are. And, you mentioned you had people that you'd reach out to and talk to. And I think that we've talked a lot about community here as well. So finding people in your community who maybe can connect you to someone or can help you through those growing pains and figuring out things is really helpful too.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my story. I am a guy who has been lifted up and carried by many. My part, though, was to accept that help, to reach out, and to let people do that. And yeah, there's a lot of people supporting me. I'm blessed. I've got a lot of people that love me and are on my side. And I cling to them, and I go back, and they have to say the same stuff to me a lot, over and over. I have to hear it again. I need the encouragement again. I need them to help me, sort through this problem again, or all of that. And they do that because they love me and they want me to be happy.
I also heard, you allowed yourself to ask questions and you allowed yourself to try new things and reflected on those things and what they meant to you and recognized that just because you could do things didn't necessarily mean that you should do the things, which I thought was really awesome because that kind of discernment is hard, especially if you're not making money or it feels desperate. So it brings to me, even though you didn't use these words, the courage that it took to say, I'm going to say no to this because it doesn't align right now, even though it may not make sense, on paper or to someone else. And courage is one of our other values at SoulFire. And it just resonates for me in everything that you've mentioned.
Oh, well, thanks. I take that as a compliment.
Well, 100%. Courage is a trait, Alex will tell you, that I admire. It is something that I really, really value. And I heard it from the very beginning that you asked questions and you reflected and you surrounded yourself with people who cared and you searched and you leaned in and you tried and you examined and you said yes where it felt right and you said no where it didn't. And so often, I know in my own life, I've said yes to things because I was scared or unsure and I knew I needed something immediately. And to have that kind of courage to say no, but the right thing's coming, or good things are coming, or it's going to be okay, like that's awesome. it's just inspiring.
Absolutely.
Well, no, thank
Very
you.
impressive.
I think it takes courage to do nothing sometimes because we feel like we got to do something. And a lot of times
Oh, that
it can be
hits.
hard to just do nothing. And sometimes it's God's next move. And that's what my story, I think, tells is there was a lot of days that I was a bum, I jokingly say, but sometimes it's don't do anything and wait for what's coming your way. There were other side factors, I think, that was good that I didn't work for a year. I have a son who was, going through drug addiction and trying to recover from that, and it allowed me to, do what I could or
Be intentional.
emotionally kind of work through that myself as a dad, and a lot of other things. I mean, even all the journaling and the Bible time in the mornings and all that stuff, it wouldn't have been the same without those times. But for me, what happened to me is God did show up, and He dropped the stuff in my lap. And if you're looking for it, if I tried to be available to see it, that was the thing. If you're looking for it, I think it'll really, you'll find it. You'll notice. I did, but it seemed really big and crazy. But yeah, you'll know.
Yeah. I love that so much. And it's true. I believe that. Okay, we are at the end of the show. So let me ask these two questions that I ask every guest. And the first one is, Jordan, what set your soul on fire?
Okay, you like authenticity. I'm going to tell you, when I first knew that was going to be the question, I'm telling you and your audience the one word that immediately came to my mind, good or bad. The word was wife. My wife, Bethany, has lit the fire. She's had to relight the fire. She's had to kindle the fire. She's had to relight the fire again. She's always been there and is that for me. Having a partner, having the right partner is the difference. I mean, it really has been the difference for me. She's a blessing, and I wouldn't have been able to do anything that I've done. As I'm working on school, who do you think's running the house? As I'm looking for a job, who do you think's making money? She was out there working. When I wanted to move and come to this house, guess who had to do all of the work to figure it out, to get it done? And then guess who kept encouraging me more than anybody else? Guess who believed in me more than anybody else through all of it? So my confidence, every time I let my confidence drop, or I let other people drop my confidence, or my circumstances drop my confidence, because that's what happens, she does the work and lifts it back up for me. Because even when she's not saying anything, it's not even necessarily something that she does, but just because I have her there, and I know that we have this good marriage and this healthy relationship, just knowing that I have that and I can fall back. Okay, the world can hate me. It doesn't matter. Bethany doesn't, And so that's where it is. Our first conversation together when we started dating, we had met in church and we had listened to a sermon, and our first conversation that Bethany and I ever got to have, we struck up a conversation and it was about the sermon. And the guy happened to say, he said, when you're looking for a partner, you need to be looking for someone, not how they look or what they do or how much money they make, but you need to be looking for somebody that can help you push back the darkness.
Ooh.
Darkness. And we loved that, and we just grabbed that, and that became the slogan of our marriage, push back the darkness. And that's exactly the kind of partner that we each try to be for each other, and that Bethany is for me. Not just my own darkness, but what the preacher was actually talking about is the darkness of the world. See, we're trying to make life better for everybody else and spread good wherever we can. And you're stronger at doing that when you have a partner that you're doing it with.
Amen.
So that too
Thank
lights
you.
my soul fire there.
I could tell. I love that. Okay, second question. If someone else is trying to figure out what sets their soul on fire, what piece of advice would you give them?
Well, ask your wife. I literally did. I said, honey, they're going to ask me this question. And then as she answered it, and I was like, man, why don't you just go on the podcast? I wish you would go. I know a lot of people that would have been better on this podcast, I think. And I told my buddy at the coffee shop that just this morning. And I was like, dude, I'm doing this podcast tonight. You'd be so great on a podcast. You got to do a podcast and tell your story. And he was like, well, man, it's like maybe you just attract that kind of people because I think you would be good. You know, you have a good message. You know, you have good things to say. You live a positive life. But kind of goes back to what Bethany, she said, well, find people whose souls are lit and emulate them. But she said this, and this part was real genius. She said, but don't try to be them.
Ooh.
Find those people that are chasing that thing, that dream, or whatever it is that you want to do, and emulate them, but don't try to be them. Try to be you.
Well, let's just give a thank you shout out to Bethany. Thank you, Bethany, for that.
That's deep and so real. I love it.
I know, man.
You know,
we love Bethany. We love
It's
Bethany.
really hard to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to shape you into something else or some kind of put you in some kind of box. So I think that's incredible.
Jordan, thank you so much for being on here with us and sharing your story, the hard parts, the gross parts, and the great parts. I know that, we'll have listeners that definitely resonate with your story. So I just really appreciate the courage of sharing that. And Mariah, tell them where they can find us.
Our listeners can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and at thesoulfire.com.
Thank you, Jordan, so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yep. We'll see you next time, guys.